Good morning, or rather, good afternoon, and welcome to this session of the online creative writing workshop. Today, we will be looking at some of the types of non-fiction writing, which is the third type of writing that we are going to attempt in this workshop. And I have limited, there are like many different types of writing that falls under this one particular genre of writing. I have tried to keep it restricted to only six of them, giving you an insight into how this writing is done, what are the aspects of it, and how you can probably even attempt a small piece of writing in any of these genre that you want to write in. Of course, you can also develop it into a full-fledged book, and books do not necessarily have to be like 200 or 300 pages. It could be something that is as small as maybe about 40 pages or even 50 pages can also be considered as a full book. Okay, so we are going to take a look at six different types of writing or subgenre of nonfiction writing, that is memoir, autobiography, biography, expository writing, prescriptive nonfiction, and travel writing. Now, in this, the travel writing is what I have described the most, so that because that's one piece I definitely want you to write, because all of us at some point or the other have tried travel even as a kid or maybe as an adult, and therefore drawing your material from there is easier for you than writing any other kind of work. Okay, so let's first look at the first one that we have, which is memoir. Now, memoir is a historical account that is written based on personal knowledge or special sources, and generally the special sources can be somebody's narration, somebody's retelling of something to you narratively, and then you put it down in words. That's a memoir. Memoirs aren't necessarily told in chronological order, allowing much room for creative retelling. Now, that's the best part of memoir, okay? Because it is not necessary to be kept in a chronological order, and you can change the order if you want, okay? Some famous examples of memoirs include Anne Frank's diary, which is only a small section of her life after she had been, they have gone into hiding. You have also Elizabeth Gilbert's Eat, Pray, and Love. You also have Anthony Bourdain's Kitchen Confidentials. And in this, like I said, you do not necessarily have to write a very long piece. It could be a short piece of writing. And generally, it only deals with one single important moment in life or a period of time and does not cover the entire life of a person or an entire section of a person's life. It could be, and generally, it's always narrated or told at a point when something major has happened, a life-changing decision, a life-changing episode, a make or break deals, and these are the kind of things that generally lead to a memoir writing. So you could choose this genre to write in which you could take one episode of your life which was probably life changing for you, and you can show the build up to that particular thing in your life, and how did it finally change you as a person, or made you take a different decision, or made you choose something else in life which you do. It could be something as simple as choosing to take literature over, let's say, science, even though you are very good at it. You chose to take this because of a life changing moment in your life. So it could be any of these kind of moments which could be converted into a memoir writing. And like I said, the length of the writing is not essential. Okay, now we move on to autobiography. Autobiography is a subgenre of memoir itself. Now, autobiography, like memoir, is also about the writer of the particular work. Okay, so memoir is again self-expressed writing. Autobiography is also a self-expressed writing. So the person who is writing the work is also the subject of the entire work. However, instead of zooming in on important aspects of life like memoir does, autobiography actually covers the person's public and private life from a particular period to a particular period. Most of the time, people retell their stories of their lives from childhood to a period. So they can even divide their life autobiographies into three parts, so, or maybe a complete story from birth to death, or it could be from child, like when you were a child to becoming an adult, from adult to middle age, and from middle age to old age. So it could be three different parts of the story also. So autobiographies can be divided into sections. Autobiographies can be written in three different sections, and or you can only choose to write one section of your life, but basically it's a much larger panoramic view of your life at that particular point in time. Okay, so we have Malala Yousafzai writing about I Am Malala, which is currently one of the most famous autobiographies that we have been reading in modern times. You have Nelson Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom, again exploring his entire tryst with the, the struggle for the blacks in Africa. So you could have any of these as a point where you want to start and when you want to end. So this could be again an experiment, but mostly autobiographicals are longer pieces of writing than memoirs. And so I would suggest right now not attempting this, but to keep it for the future when you actually feel like writing about it. If you really want to still experiment with personal writing, memoir would be a good option for the workshop rather than an autobiography. Now the only difference between autobiography and biography is that well, uh, it's generally a famous person's story, or somebody who is influential, or somebody who has influenced somebody, and somebody, the second person narrates the story. So the writer is not the subject of the story. He or she has been influenced by somebody, has been, has seen some courage or has seen something dynamic in somebody and wants to portray that to the world or tell the story about that person to the world. So that is a biography, and that person retells the life of this particular person. So sorry you have that uh, as the topic of a biography. Okay, and there can be a number of biographies on the same person, but generally when people are writing different biographies on the same person, different writers take a different perspective. Could be a different I know section of that person's life, could be a different angle at looking at that person's life, and that's how you bring new ideas to the same written material. Like, people have already written about it, yet you want to still write about that person. Probably you can take a new perspective, or even bring in a new person who was in that person's life and that man's or that woman's perspective into telling of the story. So some of the well-known biographies, and especially in today's world, is Barack Obama's The Story, which is considered to be one of the best modern biographies written. So again, this is something that you can probably try in a smaller section. If you want to try biography, this is possible. Autobiography is much more difficult. You could think of a famous person who has influenced your life, a leader who has influenced your life, and write a short piece on that. Even without carrying out interview of the person or not knowing that person personally, you could read up a lot more about it. This requires a lot of research, so you actually need to read a lot of books written about them, or go through videos that are available about that person, go through articles that are available about that person, and piece together the life story of that person. Or if the person has written an autobiography, even use that as a basis for probably looking at the entire person's life from a different perspective. So that is possible. You could probably even try attempting a biography in maybe 500 words of somebody that you really are influenced. It doesn't necessarily have to be a famous person or an influential person in public scenario. It could be your grandmother. It could be, somebody, your maid, who is like influencing you in a different way. So you're telling that person's story. That could become a biography. Now, let's move on to expository writing. Now, expository writing is a non-fiction writing again. So it generally, the idea of writing an expository piece is to reveal the truth or bring to light some important issues which are either hidden, or aspects of it has been hidden from the public. So it also falls into the genre of journalistic writing, because you have to do a lot of research to actually bring forth certain hidden aspects, or maybe even aspects that the government doesn't want people to know, or maybe certain aspects of, racial discriminations, things like that you want to bring out of certain incidents, or of certain things that have taken place, and you want to research and bring that out. That is also a type of non-fiction writing. It could be an entire book, it could be a small essay, it could be a short writing. So you could choose whatever subgenre of writing that you want to bring under that. One of the famous examples is Jenny Nordberg's The Underground Girls of Kabul, which detailed her experience as a journalist and while working with Afghan girls, and the phenomenon of Bacha Posh, which, as with other expository books, she revealed her subject's daily routine and brought to light the unknown problems in the present day Afghanistan. Okay, so this is something that you can work with, but it often poses a problem for inexperienced writers, especially because you should be very careful about issues of sensitivity, issues of what can be said and cannot be said, empathy. All of this has to be kept in mind, and you actually need to have a very deep level of understanding of the subject before you can write an expository work about it, because you should not end up exposing or spewing some false facts in your books which could influence people to read it differently and wrongly. And that is something that you have to be very, very careful about when you're dealing with expository writing. So this is something that you, as a writer, you have to be very, very careful about. How do you take on controversial topics, and how do you approach it with sensitivity and understanding? If you are not very clear about the story, if you know you're going to run the risk of sounding insensitive, naive at some point of time, I would generally advise not taking up this particular kind of writing. We are now going to go on to the next piece of writing that comes under nonfiction, which is self-help books or prescriptive writing. Again, something that everybody knows about. I mean, this is dime a dozen available. You walk into any bookstore and you're going to see all kinds of self-help books or improvement books or available. Now, this is one of the best selling books in this genre of writing, because you will find that many people find the stories that are narrated or things that are being described here are something that are relatable, and it gives you a certain action that you can take, and everybody wants to have control over their life. And when especially they feel they are losing control in certain sections of their life, or they want to improve themselves, they generally turn to these kind of books, because not everyone can hire a business coach or make significant changes on their own to their life, and they look for mentors and gurus, and these books become their mentors and gurus in these cases. So it does not necessarily have to deal with something very, very significant like PTSD, how to deal with it, or drug addiction. It can be even about self-help books, can be also about motivating and improving skills, especially interpersonal skills, which you find in a lot of business self-help books available to you. Some of the most famous ones have been Spencer Jones, Who Moved My Cheese, and Stephen R. Covey's The 7 Habits of a Highly Effective People. Now, so that is something that you can attempt at if you want to try writing that also. We're going to move on to the sixth non-fiction writing, which is travelogues, the travel writing, which has become very, very contemporary in contemporary times, very active piece or active genre, because a lot of people are now maintaining blogs, are now writing about their different travels, and because of course technology and globalization has led to a lot more opportunities for people to earn as well as travel, and that has brought, of course, a lot of people wanting to put it up and their experiences on blogs and other places. So travelogues can be written online as well as published as a book or maybe a short piece of writing. So this is why I thought that this could be something that even you all could attempt. One exercise definitely has to be on your travelogue writing. Okay, so you have to remember that every journey is some sort of a quest. Okay, whether you know it or not, it may not be a big thing, but there is some sort of a quest. So when you say I want to take a break from a routine, it's a quest. It's a quest for peace, it's a quest for finding oneself, because you feel you're losing yourself in the daily routines of life. So it's a different kind of quest. So every travel or journey that we undertake clearly has some sort of quest built into it. Okay, and we're going to look at how to bring that out and how to correlate this particular quest with your readers also, and bring to them also the sense of same quest that they may be also on, and correlate it with them and make it interesting for them. Okay, so that's why this includes memoir, because you're drawing from one particular section or episode of your life. There's a lot of nature writing, because when you're traveling, obviously you're observing things that are different from your everyday routine places and the environment that you occupy, as well as you're building an idea of a different world for your readers, which they may not have traveled to. So it does all the three jobs. So travelogue takes care of that. Okay, so you need to first identify, when you want to write about a piece of travel, what was the quest, or even if there was no quest, as you were traveling, what quest emerged while you were traveling. So that has to be your kind of the center of your writing when you're doing a travel writing. Okay, now the quest can be, like I said, abstract, like finding myself, or as specific as just taking a swim in the ocean. Okay, or it could be very big, that it changes your life because you experienced new people, you saw poverty, you saw you saw things about people that made you want to stay back and help them or something. So it could change your life. Or it could be as small as probably going back to a place because you had promised your father, or you promised your family, or family had promised that they would all meet together at this point, even they turn in a particular year or in a particular year. So it could be as simple as that. It could be just a family gathering. So whatever it is, there is generally a quest behind every journey that we take up. So you need to identify that, okay, and then you need to plant that question in the reader's mind. You need to build that question in the reader's mind. You need to explore the meaning of the place for the yourself as well as for your reader. Okay, if I'm going to tell more about this place to the reader, what is the reader going to take back? What will be the take back for the reader? What can I build for the reader? Why should the reader go to that place or visit that place? There has to be some sort of an understanding about that. For yourself, what meaning did it create? What meanings could it possibly create for somebody who might visit after reading your work? Okay, so instead of looking at the entire journey in chronological idea, it's better to tell smaller stories from that particular journey. That is easier and a much more connective way to describe something. For example, let's say, for example, I traveled to Munnar for 4 days. Okay. Now, instead of saying, oh, I took a bus from here, there was a strike on that day, and therefore I, ended up 8 hours, I could just start my story probably by saying that Munnar was a very important or probably a very beautiful trip for me because of my host. Okay, so I start concentrating on the small story of the host, whose father was a Ayurvedic doctor, who therefore had a beautiful Ayurvedic garden within his place that he was hosting us. The different kind of people I met, their family, and my interactions with them could become the center of that story. Now that could be that, or the fact that I have always traveled in typically the cars that are hired for tourism. And this was the first time we hired a two-wheeler, and how that changed my perspective of the environment or the nature, and time I got to stop and stare and actually spend time in leisure with nature. So it could be just telling a small story rather than bringing the entire journey chronologically, which could become very boring for your reader. So concentrating on these small moments of your journey and sectioning them off either into smaller chapters, or even smaller sections of your essay or your article makes it more interesting. So what you can do is plant this question, then tell small stories throughout your this thing, of course bringing in nature and other aspects also into how you describe the place and everything, and mentioning names and other places so people also find it familiar when they are traveling to that place, and then combining all the stories into one unit, one unified whole. Okay, so the end, you need to talk about what was the change you felt. It could be a small change, like I felt great after traveling to that place for 5 days and didn't feel like coming back. I felt that I could always live in this kind of a place, in this kind of a nature. I really didn't want to go back to the rut of this thing. So my realization was not very big. It was just a small realization that okay, I want to probably now in a few years look at shifting out of that place. So that's a change. So end with the change so that your readers also can see the growth of you as a character while it is happening, okay, within the story. So again, it is about stories. Every narrative, even non-fictional, have to be creative, has to be, there has to be stories, because it's stories that always people will relate to. It's stories that make us, it's stories that bind us, and that is what you need to build on. Okay, now I'm just quickly going to give you a list of other types of non-fiction writing that exists. If you want to read more and experiment more and find out more and probably even write in these genres, subgenres, you can take a look at this. You have these argumentative essays, you have persuasive essays, descriptive essays. These are again all fall under the essay. So essays can be personal essays, that is from my experience, again I'm writing it very personally, or it could be about a thing or a scientific thing. All of these could fall under essays. So essays can be both public, that is public spaces or social things, or something that is non-subjective and subjective topics. So both of these can fall under any of these three categories. You of course have the diary writing, which many writers do maintain, and these diaries have always been an additional supply or additional source for information for their own fictional writing also. Journal writing and even interviews fall under this kind of non-fiction writing. So you can choose, other than of course travel writing, which compulsorily all of you have to write, you can choose to take any other genre of the other five that I have mentioned, and you can choose to write a small piece again on 500 words, which we will be taking up during our seminars, which are going to start day after tomorrow. I mean, in the session which is after this. So tomorrow, the next session is going to be a discussion of your travel writing, which you will bring or which you will share on the WhatsApp group, and then we will have discussion like we had previously on the WhatsApp group itself, where we will talk about. Everyone will comment on the writings. I will also comment on it. Of course, I will ask you to incorporate all the peer-reviewed, suggestions into your writing, and then send it back to me, and I'll be responding individually to each mail. A request to you that do not write your travel writing more than 350 words. Please keep it to 350 words. Anything more than that, I will not be reviewing. So I need you to restrict it to 350 words only. Okay. So take a small story and build from your travel. That is what I need you to do. Concentrated writing. Okay. The other one can be longer, and that will be kept for the seminar. So that is what I expect you to do at this point of time. Thank you so much for listening to this particular session, and I hope you have a great time writing. Thank you.